Welcome. This is a beautiful opportunity for me to interview and connect with a colleague, fellow coach, and author of the book called Hungry: Trust Your Body and Free Your Mind Around Food, Tara Whitney. She is an intuitive eating counselor. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the exact title, but I'm gonna turn it over to Tara to let her introduce herself, because I personally believe that food, and this is a big part of my own journey, this relationship that we have with food, with our bodies, with how we show up and nourish ourselves on every level, is such a critical piece of how we also tune into our inner wisdom and deepen into awakening it. So Tara, welcome, and please share with us a bit about yourself and your work.
Oh, thanks, Kim. It's great to be here and have this chat. I know there's such synergy to the work that you and I both do. I work with professional women and entrepreneurs, and I help them take their energy and their time back that they've lost from dieting and emotional eating. And it's so it's such a huge passion of mine because I was that professional woman who was so obsessed with trying to lose weight, trying to eat the right things, not overeat. I was struggling with emotional eating. And I realized that I could be focused on so many other things, but I kept distracting myself and focusing on food and weight loss. And when I finally figured it out, because this was like what felt like a lifetime challenge. When I finally figured out why I was doing what I was doing and then I was able to put some things in place where I was able to set myself free, I realized, oh, maybe my struggle wasn't just by accident. Maybe it had a purpose. Maybe all of that frustration and feeling like a failure and all of that time and energy ultimately had a greater purpose. And when I sort of surrendered to that, because it wasn't something I really embraced, I was like, no, don't make me be this person.
Yeah.
Which is a funny thing to say because I really love my work, but I sort of felt like, okay, higher universe, why are you picking me?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I did feel like that's really the case, that this is really why I'm here, is to do this work.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. I remember when I did my coach training 12 years ago, and the idea that we coach from our wounds was such a powerful
Yeah.
concept. And so I love hearing how you got into this, or at least got started with it. And yeah, the time, the energy that gets spent trying to measure up to all the shoulds and all the things we think we're supposed to be, or how it's supposed to be, or how we're supposed to do things. So I'd love to ask you, you shared a bit about how you came to your work, but share a bit more about this, the intuitive counseling that you're doing, and
Mhm.
even what is it that you love the most about it, that when you work
Yeah.
with women? And actually, do you just work with women, or are you working with men as well?
I do work with men. I mean, I focus mostly on working with women right
Uh-huh.
now,
Uh-huh.
because that's really just where I feel like in my heart the need is the greatest
Yeah.
at the moment.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so intuitive eating, um, I'm declaring it a movement. And the rest of I actually got together with a group of other certified intuitive eating counselors yesterday, which has been so fun. And we all get together and we talk about some of the common challenges and issues and such that we face with our clients. And um and it feels like we're sort of like, okay, we're building up momentum, it's becoming more popular, it's becoming more mainstream, and it really has. So it's 10 principles that Evelyn Triboli and Elise Resch published probably in, oh, I can't remember when the first edition came out, because I think right now they're on their fourth. And
Wow.
they published a workbook, and they have these daily cards that they're about to publish. And um, what I love about it is it's all research based.
Wow.
All research based. So they are taking the work, and they're putting it into eating disordered clinics. They're putting it in other ways in which people are starting to embrace the intuitive eating, and then they're studying it and they're saying, wow, this works. And it works because it's evidence-based practice that involves the body. It
Mm.
involves connecting with our bodies. And what's so interesting is that a lot of my healing started when I started practicing yoga. And I went to yoga because it was challenging and it was heated, and I loved how I felt after, but I also was like, I'm sure I'm burning a lot of calories. I'm sure I'm toning this part of me or that part of me. Like, there was a little bit of that hidden agenda that no one necessarily always likes to talk about when it comes to things like that. But then I became a yoga teacher, and then I opened a yoga studio and taught teachers how to teach. And I realized, like, I love connecting people to their bodies.
Mm.
And a lot of my own healing came from me learning for myself what it meant to move from my head below my neck into my
Yeah.
body.
Uh-huh.
And even I would often look like, what worked? Okay, I was told this might work. Did this work for me? Did that work for me? Oh, that's working really well for me. And so I became a little bit of my own scientific experiment. But that's really why I love the intuitive eating practice so much, because it is about learning how to be free around food, be peaceful around food, how to nourish our bodies, but then be able to really tap into what ultimately is our inner wisdom, because we're connecting with that wisdom inside of us. And
Mhm.
at a simple level, it's the wisdom of, I'm hungry,
Yeah.
I'm full, I'm thirsty. Oh, I'm feeling something. What am I feeling? Hold on, let me just sit with my body and investigate that, or inquire in my body about that. So there's so many different levels and
Yeah.
different ways that
Beautiful.
that I just love.
Yeah. Well, and it's a perfect segue into the next question that I had, which is, how do you define inner wisdom, and in what ways does your work help people awaken their inner wisdom? I'm
Mm,
already hearing so much of it in the connection with the body.
yeah.
I'd love to hear how you define that, and as a whole broader picture, and then how specifically your work helps people tap into their inner wisdom.
Yeah, and I love that question. It took me a little, I had to sit with that one a little bit. And I think, we're told, and you mentioned this earlier, we're told so often of how we should be. And and really the challenge that I had, the root of my struggles, and I think the root of a lot of people's struggles with body dissatisfaction and their relationship with food, starts from the belief that we think our body should look a certain way. And so moving away from that into embracing this idea that we have this unique body, we have this unique vibration, we have this unique set of values, set of preferences, set of passions, and we get to explore that as something that we get to share with the people around us.
Mhm.
And I find that inner wisdom, but it's also liberation, because we get to be ourselves. And I'm finding, I just turned 50 in October, and I'm finding that more and more of what I do is honoring listening, respecting, and also being curious, like, what do I love to do? Boy, I thought I loved this, but do I really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, is that really something that I get excited about? Or do I really like this? And just in knowing that can evolve,
Mhm.
knowing it's okay for me to have a preference in my 20s that's different in my 40s or what have you.
Yeah.
But in much of a way, I think it's to summarize, it's really embracing our uniqueness.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. And, of course, couple of things. You said so many beautiful nuggets there. But that last point, the embracing of our uniqueness, I continue to be amazed that aside from the identical twin, every human body, every human body on this planet is completely unique. And even the
Yeah.
identical twin, people can tell them apart because there's an aspect of soul that shines through, and every soul is unique. So this concept of embracing the body as something that is unique to us and
Mhm.
is ours to take care of, to nurture, but mostly to embrace, to really honor. And I loved what you said earlier about how you noticed that in your own journey, as you came into your body and started moving your body and connecting with your body and paying attention to what your body wants and what it doesn't want, that's when you felt like you started healing. And it was actually a very similar journey for me as well in the realm of food
Mhm.
and nourishment and well-being. And I just think there comes a point when we're tuning into our body, we're better able to ask the question, what do I want? What do I
Mm.
really want? And you pointed to
Yep.
that as well, this idea of all the shoulds that we live by. Like, I say I want that, but is that even really what I want? Or is that just what I've been conditioned to believe I should want or
Right.
trained to believe is what I'm supposed to have in my life or aspire toward in my life? And that always amazes me, that we can have 7 billion plus people, all with unique bodies on this planet. And then, like, why wouldn't we have different wants and longings and unique needs
Right.
and understandings?
Right.
But yet, so many programs, so many different things are all about the one size fits all. Everyone should do this, everyone should eliminate that, everyone should be this. And oh my goodness, it
Yeah.
just makes me crazy.
Yeah, fitting everyone into a box.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
you belong there, you belong there, you
Yeah.
belong there. And meanwhile, where it really leaves people, at least in my experience, is it leaves people feeling really alone.
Mm,
I-
yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm supposed to fit into that box, but do I? Oh, I don't. So I must be out here. I think about that sort of a picture of a person just being in a rowboat all by themselves. Meanwhile, there everybody else is on this big ship doing their thing, going in, and then there you are just rowing your little boat all by yourself, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's and it leaves us feeling, oh, like, is there something wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? It what happens in my experience is that we turn it all back in toward ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and wondering, why can't we fit into this one size fits all,
Yes.
instead of realizing that the one size fits all is broken.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what's
Exactly.
broken.
So beautifully said. I love that. It's absolutely true. And I remember also in my coach training, I remember a beautiful human being who has sadly left this earth, but he was already a coach and he came to the training I was doing just to keep expanding on his own
Mm,
learning, doing different trainings. And I had gotten coached by the leader of the organization, and part of what had come up in what I was sharing, he didn't catch. But later, this other coach came up to me and he puts his hands on my shoulders and he says, "You're not supposed to fit in." And I just burst into tears. And it was just the most beautiful needed thing anyone I think had ever said to me, because
mm,
so much of the pain I think that we carry with us is this idea that we're supposed to fit in, we're supposed to be in
right,
those neat and tidy little boxes. So
right. Mm,
yeah, this idea of awakening our inner wisdom, I think so often we feel alone, as you're saying, because we're so busy listening to the conventional wisdom, or really I should say
Yeah.
knowledge, and knowledge and wisdom, we could go into a whole conversation about that, but they're quite different,
Right.
right? We might know things, but do we really have this wisdom that comes from deep within us that is
Mm.
guiding our actions? And so tell me a bit more about how does your work, and even in your book, which I have not read, but I love the title Hungry, because aren't we hungry for so much, even that sense of belonging, that sense of connection, our inner wisdom, all of that, we're hungering for this. Tell
Mhm.
me, what would be a tip, or something that you could offer that people could implement based on the work that you've done, and the
Mhm.
experience that you've had, as maybe embodying a new way of honoring their inner wisdom.
Yeah. Well, let me put it in terms of food, and then also share a piece of maybe that can be relevant not just to food.
Mhm.
So, one of the first things I do with my clients is we work and investigate the hunger and fullness scale,
Mm.
which for some people, it's amazing to me how unfamiliar they are with the sense of I'm hungry, I'm satisfied, and I'm full. And
Mhm.
how do I even know what's happening among that scale? So the scale goes from one, which is like if I would eat anything that I could get my hands on that was like close to food, like nauseous, hungry, 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 very uncomfortable. And then 10 is on the other spectrum, which is like just feeling so sick and stuffed, which is,
Mhm.
both of these are extremely uncomfortable, and you really don't want to be in either one of those places.
Yeah.
And a five on the hunger and fullness scale is neutral. It's the absence of hunger. It's the I'm not hungry, but yet my body's not. I'm not hungry. My body doesn't want or need any more food. But there isn't a sense of, ooh, I overdid it.
Mhm.
And really being able to understand the individually what those things are can be really, really a new learning for people. So when I take my clients through that, what I ultimately have to do is there's some research, like some of their own research that they do around really kind of investigating what are those different hunger signals that they start to notice. Like for me, I noticed even today, I noticed myself getting really cranky and agitated. Now, that's not necessarily a physical, like growly signal, but I realized later, I was like, I was hungry.
Mm.
Why? Because I ate something
Yeah.
and I felt better.
Yeah.
And so that's how I know my own inner, how I get to know the individual signals of my body,
Yeah.
because I'm able to investigate it through the lens of hunger and fullness. I get to know um, what the right amount of food, the right, depends on the time, depends on the day, depends on the food, whatever, that really nourishes and satisfies me. And all of that comes from my body. So that's one of my favorite tools. But what I also like to have my clients do is I like to have them go back and reflect on where those signals were shown,
Mm.
what evidence they got, and then see that all of that evidence was worth paying attention to.
Mm.
Because our bodies are sharing information with
Oh,
us
yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
And but we haven't necessarily too keenly tuned into it. And so
Mhm.
being able to go back and say, oh, wait, there were some messages. They
Yeah.
were being sent.
Yeah.
And I dismissed them. And
Mhm.
and and that's okay. But realize that next time those are the ways that our body communicates with us.
Mhm.
Those are the unique ways our body is sharing
Mm.
whatever it is. We're experiencing upset, we're experiencing hunger, we're experiencing thirst, we're tired. Whatever it is, the body's like, hello.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So those two things can, I think, be really powerful. And you can take that reflection really into any area. It
Yeah.
doesn't need to be around food. It
Yeah.
can be around any area of growth that you're trying to take on, in which
Yeah.
you're trying to learn how to trust those signals, listen to and trust those signals.
Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, I love that picture of the extreme hunger, hungriness and extreme
Hmm.
stuffedness, you know? And and isn't that such a great metaphor for life? Because yes, on so many levels, especially in today's world with COVID and everything happening and the isolation that people feel, we can feel a lot of hunger, hunger for life, hunger for people, hunger for connection, and then maybe that translates into you know a false sense of hunger for food to fill the gap, to fill the
Yeah,
void.
yeah.
And then of course we can also feel so stuffed with all this information. What do I believe? What do I choose to take action on, and how do I decide, and all the decisions we're being presented with, and of course that in turn can also turn into like it's a bouncing back between these extremes, because we can have a false sense of being stuffed in life when actually we're void, we're hungry. I mean, they
Mm,
cross over. I do so much work with the concept of navigating extremes, and this idea of finding the middle way. And for example, Aristotle actually called the mean between the too much and the too little virtue.
ah,
And
wow.
virtue, I work in my programs with these 12 virtues, and we go into, like, using courage as an example. Each virtue kind of has a helper that gets us to this balance point of empowerment. And then each
Mm,
virtue or each, the virtue and its helper, if they're taken to extreme, can throw us off balance. So, like, for example, you might have courage combined with carefulness, bringing us to this point of empowered change, the power to change
yeah.
things, to shift things, and or make them better. And but if we have too much courage, right, we become foolish. If we have too much carefulness, we become cowardly. And so there's this, like,
Mm-hmm.
what is that balance that we find? And how
Mm-hmm.
can sometimes it's interesting that when we're living in the extremes, if we're too foolish, well, then we might try to become a little more cautious, and then maybe become too cowardly. We just bounce back and forth
Mm-hmm.
between the extremes, confusing the
Mm-hmm.
fact that really what they're there for is to help us find the middle. So I love this scale that you're talking about, because it's just such a
Ah,
beautiful
yeah.
metaphor of hunger, excessive fullness, or stuffedness, where
Yeah.
it's like, how are we getting our signals crossed onto what that really means? And this place of neutrality, virtue, satiation, where we
Mhm.
just feel
Yeah,
satisfied.
satisfaction.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's really at the foundation of intuitive eating. And
Mm,
what's so interesting about what you're sharing too, Kim, is that a dieter lives in the extremes.
hmm.
So if you
Yeah,
think about, so the pendulum, they live in the way over to the one, and then they can't hold on to the one any
yeah,
longer. Thank goodness, because our body's like, please don't starve me. It won't tolerate that.
yep,
And then they go all the way over to the 10. And then what happens at the 10? There's guilt and remorse and shame, and then negotiation. And then,
mhm,
oh, okay, I don't want to be that anymore. I'm afraid I'm going to gain weight. What do? I'm going to go back to the one. And so you get these big swings,
yep,
when really where we want to be is, we want to be at like a 3,
yeah,
and then we want to like gently move ourselves to like a 5. And then maybe we move to a 6. That's okay. Maybe we move to a 7 for whatever reason.
hmm,
And then we'll move to a 4. And then we move to a 5. And then we'll move back to a 2. Like,
yeah,
so it's like this nice little, like, you're not even touching the edges. You're just like gently
exactly.
moving back and forth,
Yeah,
where food is just there, and it's not. our body is getting more and more confident that food is there for us, it's there to nourish us,
Yeah.
that we can listen to it when it's satisfied. We can listen to it when it's at a 2 or a 3 or a 3 or a 4 and say, "Yeah, snack would be really lovely right now. Oh,
Mhm.
okay, let's do that." And then, and so it
Yeah.
just becomes this real gentleness.
Exactly. Oh, I love it. Exactly. I mean, I always use two analogies. You spoke to one. It's the pendulum, Often when
Yes.
we pull here, it's going to go almost exactly the same height on the other side. And
Yes.
eventually it starts to settle down in the middle. So those extremes aren't necessarily bad. They just teach us, they guide us, they help us to
Yeah.
settle and get familiar. I think so often people are afraid of the extreme, so they get stuck in one or the other. But your description of the, I'm going to starve and not eat, or I'm going to overeat and binge, I mean, that's eating disorders, right? And this was my history in college, not eating, starving myself, and then, oh my god, I'm so
Mhm.
hungry, I need to binge. And then it became purging, and then it was like, what,
Mhm.
until finding eventually that
Mhm.
place. And so I just, yeah, I love the work that you're doing. I think
Oh,
food,
thank you.
nutrition, work in the kitchen, any of that.
Mhm.
And it's all such a beautiful metaphor for wholeness in the sense of who we are and who we're capable of
Yeah.
becoming, and
Yeah.
how, even the ingredients we put into the things we make, there's a balance. There's a sense of,
Mhm.
the too much and the too little, and finding that beautiful wise central way. So that scale, and then just understanding this broader picture of what our body is saying to us. So
Mhm.
beautiful. I so love that.
Yeah.
Where can we find
Thank you.
more about you, so
Oh,
that you can
sure.
learn more about your work?
Yeah. Well, I am I release a weekly podcast, and I have the book that you mentioned, Hungry, Trust Your Body and Free Your Mind Around Food. That's on Amazon. And my website is tara-whitney.com. And I offer courses around emotional eating, intuitive eating, body image, and empowerment. And
Beautiful.
so what's nice about courses is that you can take it in when you know this, you can take the information in a convenient way, little
Mhm.
snippets. And
Mhm.
sometimes a lot of times that information is just helps to move the needle a little bit to where we
Yeah.
want to go. So,
Beautiful. Oh, thank you. And
yeah.
I'll be sure wherever I share this to put links to those things in the description of the video. So wherever my viewers are seeing this, hopefully they'll take a look and check out your podcast and all the inspirational material that you have, the courses, the book. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your guidance, and your
Mhm.
amazing gifts with us today. I really appreciate
You're
having you.
so welcome. Yeah. Thank you, Kim. This has been fantastic. I appreciate it.
Oh, well, looking forward to connecting more in the future. Take care.
Likewise. Bye.